great to see you today. It's a really special day. It's a really special day because today the church celebrates All Saints' Day. So, churches that are slightly further up the candle than us will be making a serious amount of fuss because today is a really special day. The most you get out of me is my waistcoat with a bit of gold on, I'm afraid. That's the most bling that you get. But today is a really, really special day. We've just had a few fabulous days in Venice to celebrate Emma's 40th birthday. And of course there, the churches are just dripping. They do saints in a big way. They really do. The Catholic churches just do. They're just spectacular. And so today, there'll be some huge processions going on, and they'll be making a serious amount of fuss. Take it or leave it, because it kind of borders a bit on idol worship, I think, but we'll leave it there. It's fantastic to see. It's great to remember those that have blazed a trail for Jesus. Not necessarily that we start praying to them and worshipping them and getting ourselves a little bit off track, but it's great to remember the people who have blazed a trail for Jesus. One of them, of course, being St. Stephen. Oh, I've left the click. I'm not having a good morning. I've left the clicker over there now as well. I know. Look at all them wonderful saints there, complete with goldfish bowls. Our church is named after one such saint, isn't it? St. Stephen. But I wonder who else you might think of if you were thinking about saints. There is St. Stephen again from a church window, complete with his goldfish bowl. Makes it very clear, you know who the saints are. They're always the ones with the goldfish bowls. But I wonder if we were thinking about saints today, who we might think about. Maybe we'd think about Saint Mother Teresa, or maybe even Saint Bob Geldof, I don't know. Saint Nelson Mandela. People who've made an incredible difference. And who knows if at some point he's been given every other accolade. Maybe we'll have Saint Nello. They seem to be giving him everything else at the moment, don't they? So maybe someday. One of the biggest problems is that you've got to have been dead for 5 years. And you've got to have had at least 2 verified miracles to your name before the Catholic Church will call you a saint. And then it takes years and years. But when the Bible talks about saints, it's very different. Because the Bible talks about saints, it just refers to people. If you look at Paul's writings in the New Testament, you find that saints are just normal people. When he talks about the saints, he's talking about God's people. You and me. Those are just a few photos I had on my phone of us lot over the last few months. St. Gordon in the middle, complete with his bow saw. St. Pat putting the books away one Sunday morning. Not the nicest photo of her. St. Liam, who's just gone upstairs. St. Liam there, just dealing out some food. The Greek word that we translate saint, it just means set apart. And in the New Testament, it's always plural. So there's not one saint, it is the saints. 67 times Paul talked about the saints. And every time he's talking about God's people, you and me. People who've chosen to live in a different way and to set ourselves aside for God. So the words saints, as Paul uses it, we might say Christians or believers. But if you were to look around a church, we don't have any, but if you were down at St. Mary's today, where do you think you would most likely see images of saints? Yeah, you're dead right, on windows. And there's the bigger image of that church from down south with St. Stephen, a very ominous picture as he's just about to get some serious rocks on his head and be stoned. But I think there's something really profound about pictures of saints in stained glass windows. What is it that makes that window look so nice? What is it that makes the red look so red and the colours look so great? It's the light. It's about 4:30 this afternoon. What will St. Stephen look like? And I think there's something really profound about that. Saints in stained glass windows, they only look good when the light shines through them. Now that tells you something you need to know about a saint. A saint is someone who allows the light of God to illuminate their life and to shine through them. So every time you see a saint in a stained glass window, just remember, it's not because what they did, it's because they allow the light of Jesus to shine through them. That's why they look so good. That's why you join the great line of saints today, as the light of Jesus shines through your life. And we join Mary, Martha, the sisters of Lazarus today in our reading. Not at a light point, but at a really dark point, as they mourn the death of their brother Lazarus. We parachute into the middle of a story that the gospel writer John has been telling us as he unravels who Jesus is. Remember, there's no miracles in John's gospel. He never uses the word. There's only signs. There's 7 signs in John's gospel. And what do signs do? Point. Signs always point to something else or to someone else. And throughout John's gospel, John is always pointing to Jesus. The miracles all point to who Jesus is. They tell us something about Jesus. And this is the grand finale. It began with the sign of water being turned into wine. And we've worked up to the grand finale of Jesus' command over life itself, as John tells us. As we read John 11, we capture something of Mary's response to what is going on. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not be dead. What a charged level against Jesus. How many of us have cried out similar cries? It's reminiscent of Habakkuk, isn't it, that we've been looking at? Why, Lord? Why is this happening? If only you would do this, then that would be sorted. If only you had acted, my loved one wouldn't be ill, wouldn't have died. It's a prayer we can all resonate with, isn't it? But Martha's words, and she got there first, were slightly different. She says the same thing. She says, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died, but I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. What incredible faith. What a difference between these two sisters. They both say, if you've been here, God, if you've been here, Jesus, Lazarus wouldn't have died. But Martha goes on and says, and yet, even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask. Incredible. So what is John trying to tell us? Who is this person? And he tells us in Martha's answer, in Jesus' answer to Martha's question, where Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, they will live. Mary doesn't quite get that far. She's too overwhelmed by the grief and the pain. And in the shortest verse in the Bible, verse 35, 2 words, Jesus wept. And that word that we translate wept, it's not just a crying, it's disturbed in his spirit is a better translation. He's moved on the inside. Jesus does exactly what the other mourners are doing. Isn't that incredible? that Jesus, God in the flesh, is so moved by what is going on, is so moved by the death of Lazarus and by the trauma of these two sisters, that Jesus weeps. Jesus has moved to tears. Never believe the lie that God doesn't understand your pain, that he doesn't know your fears, your worries, that he doesn't care. Jesus wept, and Jesus weeps and understands the pain that he sees going on in our lives too. But what is Jesus' response to it? He says, take away the stone. Take away the stone and face the smell. Because death stinks. Metaphorically, death stinks. And literally, in that heat, after 4 days, death stinks. I found this picture to kind of a more modern picture. Oh, where's it gone? Hang on a minute. It's having a funny on me again. Oh. Yeah, it's on the desktop. Just try opening up the PowerPoint. If we get to it, it's a picture of Jesus looking into the tomb, and on either side, you've got Mary. It's the one that should come after it, but it's having a funny, the computer. If you just open up PowerPoint, yeah, it's not loaded the rest of the slides. If you open up PowerPoint off the desktop, it's just there on the desktop. It'll play nice. You've got Jesus looking into the tomb, and you've got Mary one side and Martha the other. Mary, her head is in her hands as she weeps. But Martha, sitting alongside Jesus, is looking, hopefully, into the face of death. It's a wonderful picture if we manage to get there. Two sisters facing the same situation in a totally different way. One overcome with grief. The other one sits by the side of Jesus and looks into the tomb. Is it going to play? If you just shut down Song Pro and then double click and open it up off the desktop, and then just open that file that says All Saints, you should be able to hopefully it should work. Brill. See the difference? See Mary on the left. And yet look at the expression on Martha's face. By the side of Jesus, she can even look into the face of death and all the pain and everything that's going on at losing a brother. Wonderful, isn't it? I think it's just a great picture. There's going to be pain in our lives, isn't there? We're going to have to face death. Death of people that we love. And yet, even in that, at the side of Jesus, God says, I can reveal my glory in you if you believe, are those words that we read slightly earlier in John. So Jesus, the stone is rolled away, and Jesus just says those two, well, it's 3 words, isn't it? Incredible words. Lazarus, come forth. No great prayer, no great words. He just commands Lazarus, come forth. I love that picture. Take the grave clothes off him. Unbind him. Let him go. And again, we know this story. And we think, yeah, this is great. But just imagine. Look, I'm not sure if that's meant to be Mary or Martha standing behind Jesus. But look at the expression on her face. Actually, fear. Who is this man? that commands dead people back to life. Look at the awe on her face. This is someone that's been dead for 4 days. We know what's coming. They didn't. Just imagine when Lazarus stepped out. Goodness me. Take his grave clothes off. Unbind him. Let him go. Some of us are still wearing our grave clothes. Some of us still haven't managed to untangle from ourselves the dirty rags of our old life. And if we're going to walk with Jesus, Jesus says, you know, you've been born again. The old is gone, we heard in that Revelation reading. You're a new creation. Take the old clothes off. Get rid of the grave clothes. Get rid of the rags that are still wrapped around you. That's to do with death. That's to do with your old life. Unbind yourself. Leave it behind. And whatever that means to you, I'm sure you've probably got some ideas. Take them off. Unbind yourself. Leave the things to do with your old life behind. Behold, I make all things new. We're here in that incredible reading from Revelation. Same author, it's John. And in Revelation 21, we read, behold, there's a new heaven and a new earth, and there is no longer any sea. Has that ever occurred to you as being slightly strange? Because for us who love a nice trip to Rhyl or Blackpool, the idea that, and there was no longer any sea, well, why is that important? Well, of course, to them, sea meant turmoil. Sea was the place where invaders came from. Sea was the great unknown, the depths. There is no turmoil. There is no great unknown. There is no mysterious depths in the glorious presence of God. And it's very interesting that later on in Revelation, when we get a description of heaven, what's the sea like in front of the throne? It's like a sea of glass. Have you ever seen water so still that it looks like glass? Perfectly still. The stillness, not turmoil, when the presence of God is there. Behold, I make all things new, and there's no more sea. There's no more turmoil. The second really interesting thing is, have you noticed that in John's vision of the new heaven and the new earth, we aren't taken up to heaven? Heaven comes. Heaven comes down. How interesting. Luke, God's dwelling place, is now amongst the people. And he will dwell with them. They will be his people. God himself will be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order has passed away. Who is this God? Who is Jesus? John answers for us. He's the one who came down. The God who came to meet us in our mess. Not the God who waits for us to escape this life to go and have a rest in heaven. He's the God who comes and meets us in the middle of our mess and our death and our pain and says, and I will wipe away the tears from your eyes. So today, All Saints' Day, yes, we remember all these saints that have gone before us, not because the pictures with goldfish bowls are in windows. We're not remembering them because they've died. We're remembering them because they've lived. And because in this life, they made an incredible difference by allowing the light of God to illuminate others through them. They lived in the mess. They lived in the struggle. They didn't float around. They were rolled up, sleeves up, normal people like you and me. Who knows if someday a tapestry like this might be up on a wall with St. Sue over on the left, St. Rachel, St. Paul, even St. Max the dog, St. Anne, St. Winifred, St. Fran. And yes, of course, I won't miss her out. St. Pat Foxall. So we're not going to pray to the saints and worship the saints, but we're going to say, thank you, God, for the saints. Thank you what they modelled to us. And God, may we roll our sleeves up just the same. Come on, saints. You, just the same as them, have the opportunity to allow God's light to illuminate your life and bring his light to others through you, just as they did. This day, this week, and with the hope that you're going to join the saints one day in glory. Happy All Saints' Day. Amen. Cheers, Fanny.
I think now might be a nice time if we all said a prayer for somebody that's rolled her sleeves up for this church.